Let's be intentional. This idea is irrefutable, simple, but at the same time, it is a compelling concept. Being intentional means making calculated, thoughtful, studied decisions based on something important to you. When we are intentional, our choices help us to have that specific focus and to take the right action. We go out of our way to seize every opportunity presented to us in our life because we depend on it. And why do we do that? Well, because it does. Our future relies on our purposeful actions and choices. So, welcome to Let's Be Intentional, a space designed for you to help you increase your intentionality. So, we invite leaders who share their life stories and especially those elements that allow them to succeed and be meaningful day by day. And today, in Let's Be Intentional, we have an extraordinary guest and a very successful leader, Oscar German. Oscar, welcome to Let's Be Intentional.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Liana, for having me. It's an honor to be here to speak on a topic that I find very purposeful, and I think it's going to be really good for the audience.
Oh, thank you. Oscar is accompanying us from Houston, Texas. It's an honor for us that he generously accepted this invitation. And as I said, to help us be more purposeful and intentional. So later, I will tell you more about Oscar's professional career, achievements, and social impact. But before I pass the microphone, I want you to know that Oscar is an entrepreneur and a business executive with a strong multicultural experience. He has worked in and led teams in 5 different continents: Europe, Americas, Australia, and Africa. He also was a semi-professional in soccer player and is passionate about developing leaders, in particular, a young leaders, young generations. So he can be found in his city, speaking and coaching students and helping them to develop their leadership. So, okay, while I'm taking notes here, because I don't want to miss any point, when was that you start developing those professional and business ideas? And what was that led you to start all those projects? We really want to tell us about your why.
Thank you. Speaking about my why, that's such a deep topic, right? I think everyone has their why. And for me, it started at a very young age. I'm originally from El Salvador. I was born in Santana, El Salvador, and I lived there till I was the age of 9 years old. And for me, I want to say that my why today was shaped during those years back in my country. And I say that because of the things that I experienced. By the age of 8 years old, I had experienced 5 major changes that most children don't necessarily go through. But in my case, I had to face them because they were reality. The first change I encountered was that my dad, separated from my mom at birth, and so I didn't grow up with my dad next to me. So that was change number one. Change number two is that my mother at some point decides that she wants to come to the United States to pursue a better future for her children. And I'm then asked to go live with my brother at my godparents' house. My sister went to go stay with my grandmother, but we went to stay with my godparents. And we moved from the city out to the country. And so that was second change number two that I experienced at the age of, I want to say, about 6 years old. Shortly after that, my sister joined my mother in the US, and we went to go live with my grandmother. And by then, we moved back to the city. About a year later after that, I was asked to come to the US. And at that point, I left behind my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, cousins, and more importantly, my brother, who I was literally raising me, and joined my mom and my sister in Houston, Texas. And so by this time, I had experienced separation and having to readjust with a different guardian. And so for me, that was a big change. And then I arrived in this country, right? And change continued. I tell people that I arrived in Houston, Texas, and there's a famous novel by the name of A Tale of Two Cities. by Charles Dickens. And the author talks about, being in Paris in a jail for 18 years and then later being freed, and he goes to live in London, and he tells the story of the two cities. That's the way it felt for me. I was in Houston, Texas, but I felt I lived in two cities. Why do I say that? Because when I arrived, went to go live with my mom's employer. My mother was a nanny for a very wealthy family. And so we lived Monday through Friday at the apartment behind this very wealthy family in the city of Houston in a um, very nice area in the West University River Oaks area. And so Monday through Friday, I lived there. I went to the schools there, which was a benefit because they were very good schools. But on Saturdays and Sunday, we would take the bus and we would go live in an apartment in the inner city. They call it here the barrio, right? El barrio. And so for me, it was like two different worlds. Saturday and Sundays, I'm in north side of Houston, growing up in a very rough inner city area. And then Monday through Friday, I'm sitting there living in a very luxurious neighborhoods with very fancy cars and not very many people that look like me, right? And so for me, that's where it begins, what I call shaping my why. And I say that because for me, at a very young age, I learned something. I learned that I was not going to forfeit this opportunity that my mother had worked so hard to give all of us, all her children. Um, I'm the youngest of four. I have a sister and two elder brothers, and they all were brought to the U.S. back in the 70s by my mother. And so at a very young age, I started to dream of what I could become in this country, right? And I tell a story, my first day of school at an elementary by the name of Poe Elementary. Uh, I was scheduled to get picked up by my sister. She never showed up. And so I'm sitting there staring at these big mansions, and I had no clue which way to go. So I decided to start walking. I end up getting lost, and there was panic. I understood my mother came to look for me, my sister, and I was no longer found. And they went to look for me with the teachers and so forth. And they found me at a very prestigious university by the name of Rice University. I had walked so much, I got lost, and they found me at this university. And the irony is that this university, it's like a Harvard, right? It's the Harvard of the South. It's the Ivy League. Well, that was my first time hearing about this university. Later in my high school days, I got an opportunity to go visit. They had open days for high school students, and I went to visit, and I walked around, and I dreamed of one day attending a university, perhaps that university. Well, I never got to go to Rice University, but as we fast forward, the irony of it is that my oldest son, Nate, ended up getting a scholarship to Rice University to go play football there and graduated from there. So at a very young age, I had a dream and a vision to attend that university. And it didn't get fulfilled by me, but my son fulfilled it. And so our whys sometimes can carry over to the next generation. So for me, it started at that young age, and it has carried on. It has carried on that what my mother did for us, her sacrifice would not be in vain, that there would be fruit that would come from that. And that has caused me to pursue things with passion and be able to persevere. And as I look back now on my career of 25 years of human resources, I've been executive, I've been a chief human resource officer for many multinational companies. I look back and I say it was worth it, right? It was all worth it. But once again, it started as a child, and I knew I wanted to make my mom proud and assure that I took advantage of every opportunity and represent my country. That, it's a very small third world country, but I was very proud to say I was Salvadorian living in this country.
How amazing, Oscar. What a beautiful stories. What are incredible points here. That readjustment process for the people that it's that emigrates from one country to another totally understand what we're talking about, right? That cross-cultural situation and that cultural adjustments that we have to make along the way is an amazing element for your story, talking about how you readjust not only because the family situation, but also because the decision that your mother made to move to a different country, and also that your ability to understand that you were living in two different worlds, and you have that awareness, and you see those two opportunities. You see what was here and what was there, and you have the opportunity to see how that will be shaping your future. And that story, well, you found the university, but seems like the university also found you, because this is one of the amazing points that I can see here, that your mother leave a legacy, and you decide to leave very intentional that legacy, and start visioning a future. And literally, since you were very young, you start working on your vision, and you use that visualization process, visiting that university and reaffirming yourself, I'm going to be there, this is what I'm going to do. It's very, very intentional, pursuing with passion a vision that I was giving to you, with the understanding of those two worlds. You saw it, because the majority of the population, probably if they develop just in one place, they don't have that opportunity to see the two worlds, to see the differences, right? It was an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're right. There's a lot of people that um, are caught in those situations, but don't stop to process. And for me, I saw the good and the bad in each area, right? Being in the barrio, I saw, how tough it was, and everything you had to do to survive, because, the neighborhood was rough, right? Uh, and so I learned how to carry myself in a way that where I got respect. And this is as a teenager, as a young 12, 13-year-old growing up there. And as I transferred to the other area, I learned to respond and educate people, because I encountered racism, right? The elementary I attended, I was the very first Latino. And I'll never forget fourth grade, Mrs. Robertson's class. Um, I walked into class, and the kids picked up their desk and they moved it to the other side. This was in 1973 when I arrived in this country. And that was my first experience with America, right? I walked into class and the kids moved. I had never seen that before. But you know what? It was just a matter of time before I befriended people, Anglos, African Americans, and they helped me, because I didn't know any English, right? So it was all sign language, but I picked it up quickly. I picked up English quickly because of survival. I was the only Hispanic in that school. And until this day, I have friends from back in the elementary days that I recall them sitting there helping me with apple, and things of that nature. And for me, that experience marked me, and it taught me how to survive in both worlds. And I think that's allowed me to be very successful in the corporate world. It allowed me to understand that environment, but at the same token, have the fortitude that and the bravery to encounter tough issues, to take risks. I think being raised in the barrio helped me a lot with my leadership, right? You have to be able to lead, to grow up in rough areas. You have to be able to stand up for yourself. You have to be a visionary. And I knew that even though I was living there, and we eventually moved there permanently, and my mother would still go to work, but we lived there Monday through Sunday in the inner city. I knew that I wanted out. And the fact that I had seen the other side, if you want to call it that, the other side of the tracks, right? I had seen the other side. I knew what it was like, and I knew that I could make it there. I knew that I could be successful and get to that level. But it was going to take hard work, and that's where my mother, I recently
Legacy.
the legacy, exactly. I recently had an opportunity to speak on leadership, and I made a presentation. And I talked about the greatest leadership book that was never written. And I was referring to my mother. She was the greatest leader. And I worked for major CEOs, individuals that are, highly educated, successful, running multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies. And they're amazing leaders. But I have to say that they would take a backseat to my mother. And this is a woman that, had a fourth grade education. Leadership doesn't necessarily have to have academics.
No.
Leaders that are natural born leaders, they're visionary. It surpasses the things that perhaps a university can teach us, right? And my mother taught me that. My mother taught me what work ethic was, what purpose was, what passion was, what perseverance was, what it is to be a team player, how to help others, how to bring others along, how to take risk. And so that's the legacy that I'm trying to
Beautiful.
try to carry on now. And I believe that's my why. So, it's carrying what my mom had started and passing it on now to generations to come, not only with my children, but other family members. And these days, with even individuals that I don't know, that I get an opportunity to coach, to speak to, and encourage in their own careers.
Imagine that. Yeah, beautiful. Leaving that legacy, right? And passing it on, which is our responsibility. That's the reason why we're leading others. But I love what you add to this part of it. Like you have those mentors, those friends from other cultures that they didn't know better that they were mentoring you, but they were helping you to develop the new language and understanding, and also that element of survival, which I have to say, Oscar, well, this is probably a topic for a conference or another conversation, but surviving, it's really giving to very successful leaders that element that unfortunately some people don't have it. When you have to survive, just start knowing who you really are, your DNA. So, my friends, as I promised, I'm going to share more about our guest today, Oscar. And well, he mentioned that he is native from El Salvador. He is a husband, a father of three children. They are nowadays professionals and college students. Oscar has over 25 years experience as human resources professional, as he shared with us, for multinationals, private equity, and startup organizations. He is currently the CEO of German Consulting Group, a human resources consulting services company, as well as the CEO of Affirm Leadership Coaching, and that is a trainer, speaking, and coaching services. He is a certified John Maxwell team leadership coach, speaker, trainer, and facilitator. And he was previously chosen as one of the 20th executive role models in the United States, selected nationwide in the, tell me if I'm wrong, the Lifesavers Take a Bigger Role Award. Oscar is very active in social media as well. So if you want to get in touch with Oscar, I'm going to leave here his contact information and how you can be in contact with him. Now, Oscar, we want to move to that part of your life that you are so intentional. We want you to share with us what kind of elements or tools or resources you are using every day that help you to maintain this level of intentionality.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with the word intentionality. I use it quite often because when we really want to do something and we're intentional about it, it becomes a priority. So for me today, I would say that there's several things, right, that I look at. I break my life into different aspects: my health, my career, my own personal growth. And there are things that I do very specifically. Health wise, I'm very intentional about going to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, right? Because I'm taking care of my health. I work out, I lift weights, I go running. And so I'm very much in the best shape that I think I've been in many, many years. So I'm very intentional about that. But when it comes to, I would say, my personal growth, there are several things that I do to continue. Number one is I continue to work on growing as a leader. Leadership is a journey. It's not a destination. We never arrive. right? We're always learning from others. I think I
Yes.
will get, God willing, into my 80s, and I will still be learning and growing as a leader. And I learn from young people. I learn from anybody and everybody that crosses my path, and I learn from them. So I'm intentional about connecting with people. Whether I'm at the store, wherever I'm at, I'm intentional about connecting with people. In the business that I'm in human resources consulting, I have to connect with my clients, right? The companies that I provide service to. When I focus on working with individuals, either coaching in their own personal growth, their business, career, I have to connect with them. So I'm very intentional about connecting, listening carefully to others, and seeing how I can add some element of growth for them, some element of wisdom that can help them grow, right? But I would say to you that I'm going to give you 5 laws that I'm very intentional about, that I believe are going to help the audience
Oh,
because they help me, right? And this is some of the material that we work on. But one of them is what I call the law of the mirror, right? And that's where you have to see value in yourself to be able to add value to yourself, right? And I'm intentional about that. I'm intentional about seeing the value in myself to be able to continue to grow, right? I have to have that self-confidence. So the law of the mirror is something that I focus on, and I try to practice daily. I give myself positive reinforcement because life has a way of knocking us down, right? I may lose a client. I bid it on a company to provide human resources services, and they didn't give it to me. Well, you can get deflated, you can get disappointed, discouraged, but you have to look in the mirror and say, there's someone else out there that wants my services, right? And so the law of the mirror is one. I would also say the law of pain. Good management of bad experiences leads to great growth. I'm intentional about taking my failures and using them as my stepping stones to continue to grow,
wow.
right? I don't shy away from failure because I learned at a young age how to fail forward, right? I've learned how to fail, but take 2 steps while I'm failing, right? Might have been knocked down, but I was crawling while I was on the floor. And so it's failing forward. So the law of pain. The other one that to me is very important, and it's been important for me since my childhood, is the law of environment. And that's where growth thrives in conducive surroundings. And my mother used to have a saying in Spanish, and it would say, "Dime con quién andas, te diré quién eres." Tell me who you're with, and I'll tell you who you are,
Yes.
right? And today, I encourage a lot of the people that I work with, look at your surroundings. Is that conducive for your growth? Are you around people that inspire you, or are you around people that all they bring to you are negative things, right? So your environment is very important, and you have to be intentional about it. And you know what? Sometimes I have great friends that I love saying hi to them, but I don't necessarily associate with them daily because we don't have a lot of things in common. But are they people that I love and I appreciate? Yeah. And I see them, right? I've got
We can
family
we
members
can
the
we
same way.
can meet at Thanksgivings and party celebrations, and yeah, we can do the barbecues, but they are not necessarily
Absolutely.
our inner circle.
Yeah,
Totally.
I tell people all the time. I tell people, I give people this story. I said, Jesus told the masses, let's get in the boat and go to the other side. Well, not everybody fit in the boat. What does that mean? That Jesus only took a few to the other side. That doesn't mean
Powerful.
everybody goes with you're going, right? And sometimes when you dream and you have visions, not everybody is ready to embrace that. They cannot see where you see. They
Exactly.
cannot go where you're wanting to go. So the law of the environment is something I'm very intentional about. And then the law of the rubber band. And that's when growth stops, when you lose the tension between where you are and where you want to be, right? It's pulling that rubber band back. And so I'm very intentional about knowing where I want to go and continuing to pull that rubber band to stretch me, right? To stretch me. In a few years ago, I went back to get my master's in management and leadership. I've been 18 years, I hadn't been in college, and I went back to get my master's. They told me it would be done in 18 months and I would be, graduating. And I said, I don't have 18 months. I need to make it happen sooner and faster. I finished my master's in 12 months. I was very intentional about it. Did I
Wow.
sacrifice a lot? Yeah, I sacrificed a lot of parties, a lot of weekends, right? But I was intentional about it and it was done. It was accomplished, right? And so that's what I mean by the law of the rubber band, being able to stretch myself and stretch others around me, because the further we stretch, the further we can go, right? And so those are things that I can tell you that today I'm very intentional about. And then the last one is one that I find it very important, and that is the law of contribution. And that is, when you grow yourself, the best thing you can do after that is bring others along, help others grow, contribute to the growth of others, right? And so don't be selfish. I've had great mentors, great coaches in my life that have given me an opportunity to grow. They poured into me, they saw talent in me, and I try to pay that back. And so I'm often texting people, encouraging them, telling them, what their potential, whether they're high school kids playing football or college kids getting ready to go to the NFL, or just business leaders that I engage with. I'll send a text just to encourage them, or get on the phone with them, go grab lunch with them. And so the law of contribution, I'm very intentional about making sure that I don't keep it to myself. I am where I am today, not because of me, because it hasn't just been me. It's been a bunch of people that have contributed to my success, right? And so I try to pay that forward.
Wow, Oscar, this is material for a conference. And probably the law of the contribution, my friends, as you can see, well, Oscar is adding value to let's be intentional. I love that part that you are talking about, that you are so intentional with yourself, taking care of your health, being active every day. I love the part that you are intentional in your personal growth, and you are so aware that this is a journey. Your leadership is a journey, also because your expertise is human resources, that you're so focused on connecting with people. Part of the foundation for success. And how amazing, Oscar, that you use them to be intentional every day. The law of the rubber band is definitely something that everybody keep telling us, that we can reach the next step, that we can go to the next level. But there is a question, right? Are you going to be able to pay the price? Do you really going to sacrifice yourself for the next step? Now, the environment, it's been said that we are the average of the people that surround us. So we better take care of this, right? We need to make sure that we are surrounded by the right people. And the law of the mirror, how beautiful is that? Let's say ourselves that positive reinforcement. Sometimes, Oscar, the hardest person to put on agreement on our goals is ourselves. I want to ask you a question about the law of the pain. To do the falling forward. People, people most of the time when they think of the idea of being successful, they don't see and they don't understand that the coin has two sides. And success will carry failure. And actually, in reality, we need to fail in order to be successful. And failure needs to become your partner, something in your life that not only you can face it, but you can live with it, and you can embrace it, and you can even use it for your successful goals or your successful achievements. How can we do that? Help us a little bit more with that area. This is so powerful.
Yeah, well, here's the reality. The reality is that life is going to throw challenges at us. We as human beings will go through life and we will face challenges, adversity, trials and tribulations, and a lot of it is painful, right? I lost my mother a few years ago. That was very painful, right? But I could sit there and mourn and deal with the pain, or I can sit there and celebrate the life and the legacy of an amazing woman and leader. And so sometimes I think it's perspective, right? It's perspective on how we encounter pain. That's not to say it doesn't hurt. Of course it hurts. And sometimes we have to mourn, cry, call someone. But embracing pain, to know that pain leads to power, right? When we can deal with pain, it leads us to another level of power. I often say, and I tell my kids, if you see someone in authority, be respectful, because behind that authority, there's been a painful process to get to that. You don't get to the top that easy. You've gone through challenges, you've gone through journeys. So for me, the pain is, you have to understand that it will come. Life will throw things at you, and embrace it and see what can come out of that. What's the best that can come out of that? And it's, I always call it stepping stones, right? I'm putting a stone to climb to the next, into the next, into the next. And the stone of pain, to me, happens to be really big stone, because it hurts a lot, but it helps us climb faster. People that haven't experienced pain don't appreciate, and they're not sustainable leaders. I've seen people become very successful in the business world, in the corporate world, but because they didn't go through as much adversity, they don't sustain that authority. I was talking to a young man who will more than likely go play in the NFL. And he's going through adversity as we speak today. And I said to him, your adversity today was going to make you a better professional player. Because when you get to that stage, you would have felt what pain was, what criticism is, what emptiness is, what today the word, people use is haters, right? They want to hate on you. They want to criticize you. And I said, embrace that adversity. Don't ever get too high and never get too low. It's somewhere in the middle, and just stay there, focus, and continuing to improve. So for me, the law of pain, it's one that it's there. It's always going to be there, but it's about embracing it and learning how to grow from it, right? Pain can do one of two things. It can make us hide under a rock, or it can make us stand up and climb those rocks, right? So that's the way I look at it from that perspective.
I love that part that you said, we will have those challenges and tribulations, and we will face them every single day. And that's in reality not the question. Are we going to be facing challenges? Oh, of course we will. Every single day. The question is that, what is the perspective that you have in front of your challenges, and how are you embracing those challenges? Two bigger points for definitely a conference and coaching session. So Oscar, thank you for adding that amount of value, applying your law contribution with us also, in adding value to Let's Be Intentional. This is our desire, that if you have discovered any element or any idea that resonate with you, you can start today to increase your intentionality. Yes, you can. You can apply it to your daily elements or your daily life, and get better, and increase your abilities and go further. And why not reach those levels of achievement that you want, and become who you want to become, or you need to become, in order to achieve your goals. So let's be intentional, my friends. Oscar, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure sharing my story, my why, and my intentionality. Have an awesome week, and look forward to doing this in another occasion, maybe at a conference.
Yes, we can do that. So my friends, be in touch, because we will be inviting you again to another session of Let's Be Intentional. So have an intentional day.
Thank you.